Good evening, everybody. Today's Monday, February 28th, 2022, at 6:30 PM. It's time for the Board of Selectmen meeting. The first order of business, as always, we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Hold on. Mr. Joseph is joining us via phone tonight. Mr. Sullivan.
Before we vote on the entirety of the consent agenda, two of them are submission for bucket brigades. So I suggest that we have them come up, give them a little chance to have a brief presentation before we approve the consent agenda.
I think that's a good idea. Without objection. So you want to clear out the rest of the consent agenda and then bring them up?
I say just let them do a presentation, then we just vote the whole thing.
All right, we can do that. First, we have the Dudley Little League. Dudley Little League wants to come on up and ask.
You can stand here or come up there.
You can stand there or come on up.
Good evening. My name is Dan Calvallo. I'm the president of Dudley Little League, and I'm here tonight to seek approval to have our annual Little League parade. The date we are looking for is...
What's the number?
Go ahead, Dan.
The date we're looking to have the parade is Saturday, May 7th, with a rain date of Saturday, May 14th.
Okay. Board members? Jay?
192?
It's all right.
Comments?
Any comments for Dan?
Just to Dan, Mr. Chair, I generally haven't been able to make it on a Saturday, but I know in the past selectmen have participated, so all are welcome to join the festivities, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a nice day, make some money on the concessions.
I'm hoping so. My first parade day as league president. It's only been 3 years.
Finally, right?
Finally.
First one in
I
a few
know.
years.
Yeah.
I think last one we saw a worm burner. Or
Oh, no, it was long before that.
Oh,
I wasn't the
before
last
that.
one, but I will, Dan, I will also ask the rep and the senator to see if they can come too for it.
Excellent. That'd be great. Thank you.
Oh, see,
Did you just start then?
Noon.
Noon. That's important.
And that's just from town hall to the field, right?
Correct.
Like we always do.
You say it's 11.
Correct.
And then Chief, we'll do the big thing with the trucks and stuff too. And we're gonna let the veterans know. I think the veterans like to know about these parades too. I think last time there was an issue.
I can reach out to them too.
Oh, you did?
No, I will. I wanted to get approval
I don't know if
first.
you remember that a couple of years ago. That was a thing. Yeah, they like to participate.
Pretty sensitive.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good. I had no problems.
Nope.
All right. Thanks, Dan. We'll want to vote all on this at once. So thanks.
Awesome.
Great
Thank
to see
you.
you.
Good to see you too.
Yep. And then Sean Bose is here to talk about the Pan Mass Challenge annual. Come on up, Sean.
Good evening.
Hi.
John?
How we doing?
Good, man.
Looking to do another toll booth on June 4th with a rain date of the 11th for the Pan Mass Challenge. Just looking to see if I might be able to do that.
Mr. Sullivan,
Mr. Chair, to Michelle, he's our only one, right?
so far this year.
He's our longest one too, I believe, right?
The
I
music
think this is the
Longest
10th year.
parents got canceled.
What got canceled?
The music parents,
Oh.
little band,
Okay.
choir,
Okay. Excellent.
they might postpone.
Anybody have any questions for Sean?
Just wish him success, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Sean, is it a family ride again or just you?
They're going all over the place this summer, so Bales will be in California and Brooke will be in Hawaii, but the rest of the family's volunteering, and we'll be there for the whole weekend.
Nice.
So,
Good luck.
thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Board members.
Mr. Chair, make a motion, present the consent agenda as, to vote on the consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Mr. Sullivan. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Johnson. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Paul Joseph, aye.
Gary Siganovich, aye.
John Marcy, aye, unanimous. All right, thanks, guys, on that one. Next up, we have the town administrator's report. Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The private well testing in the Eagle Drive area has been extended per Mass DEP another 500 feet. I think we talked about it a few times. As the board recalls, this is part of the town's ongoing effort to address possible sources of contamination in its public drinking water supply. In this case, it's private drinking water supply that we're testing. The first round of testing, as the board recalls, showed very limited PFAS levels. And those detected levels were well below the Mass DEP minimum thresholds. Notifications went out to 15 residents this past week on Eagle Drive, including the original 5 that were tested in December. Residents will call the conservation office to make appointments in the coming week. Some of the board members may recall for a while we were paying out-of-district tuition for Norfolk Agricultural School. A Dudley student has applied for out-of-district tuition and transportation FY23 to that vocational school. Per policy, the Dudley Charlton Regional School District Superintendent has reviewed the application, and it was denied for the upcoming year based on the qualifying grounds that Bay Path has the same or similar program, and the same or similar program being available through the local regional vocational school is a disqualifier for the town to be required to incur the cost of out-of-district transportation and tuition. So if we have a local program that will suit the need and the purpose, generally that's denied. So that was a budget consideration for this FY23 budget, but as it stands now, we're gonna leave that out.
And Jonathan, do you remember the cost per student to do that from?
Yeah, they sent something out. I think the tuition is 26 grand, and then whatever it costs for transportation, it generally ran, I think it was 40 for the transportation, 26 for the tuition, that ballpark.
So $66,000 for one student, okay, just wanna know. Okay, thanks.
This year and over the course of the next 2 years, a portion of my budget recommendation to the board and to the FAA will be to recommend the use of qualifying ARPA funds to be used as a source of funding for annual compliance and regulatory costs, grants and project design, capital improvements, and limited revenue replacement to bridge the gap between known and anticipated revenue streams. And when I say that, I think I've discussed it publicly and privately with the board that some of our host community agreements, our land lease agreements, things are a little behind. Like, we anticipated additional revenues by this time. And when we do the budget hearings for FY23, I'm gonna show the board and the FAA and the public where we anticipated being versus where we actually are, about 1.5 years behind. So some of that qualifying revenue, which the board declared as a revenue loss from ARPA, will be applied to the FY23 budget to help us bridge that gap so that we don't have to stand still or go backwards in anticipation for those revenues to come. Also, Mr. Johnson brought up an idea to assist residents interested in pursuing private road betterments by identifying an appropriate funding source to offset the cost of legal review, engineering, and administration. And I think that a portion of the ARPA money received that qualifies as revenue replacement will be appropriate for that purpose. And so I will propose to fund a grant and project design line item in the FY23 budget to include legal, engineering, and administrative expenses for those purposes. And the suggestion, the good news about the suggestion by Mr. Johnson is that it will reduce the cost of the betterments carried by the residents of those roads. So
That's
we
fantastic.
should be on pretty solid footing to provide a little bit of an assistance.
That's fantastic.
And we have 3 or 4 in the pipeline right now, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's it for this part of my report, Mr. Chairman. We have a couple items that we'll
Okay.
discuss further later on in the agenda.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, motion to accept town administrator's report.
motion by Mr. Sullivan, second by Mr. Johnson, roll call vote.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Paul Joseph, aye.
Gary Siganovich, aye. John Marcy, aye. Unanimous. Thank you, Jonathan. Item 4, citizens' comments. Is there anybody in the audience today who would like to discuss something that is not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none. We'll move to item 5, which is PACE program overview.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ruda.
I put this on the agenda thinking that we were gonna be able to do this tonight, but, the scheduling didn't work out with the representative from the state, so we rescheduled that
Okay.
to March 14th.
Fair enough. All right, we'll move on to item 6, old business. 6A, Thursday evening hours for the town hall. This was tabled from our last meeting on the 7th. Mr. Ruda.
Mr. Chairman, in your, I almost said in your packets, I guess in your drive folders now, there's a folder under tonight's meeting called Thursday evening hours. The board had asked me before you voted to take a look at what the current hours are now, what's being proposed, who's asked for a waiver and that sort of thing. So if you go to that spreadsheet, it gives you kind of an idea as to where we stand. In the original vote that was withheld was on my recommendation to allow department heads to make that call in terms of Thursday evening hours versus something different. And I know that you've received a lot of correspondence, it's all there in the folder as well, from different department heads and so forth, and all their responses are also in your folder.
Board members?
The one thing I will bring out is, there are some clerks that have after-hour meetings. So we tried to assign a value to the amount of time that it takes somebody's involved. For example, Michelle comes to an after-hours meeting once every 2 weeks. So there's a loss of time for her, which we would of course want to make sure she was credited for. So I spoke to a couple of selectmen, and we thought that maybe 4 hours was a good value for an evening meeting in terms of paying people to cover it.
Okay.
Sometimes they run longer, as we know. Sometimes they run shorter, but I think if we had to assign a value to it, 4 hours seemed pretty reasonable.
Mr. Johnson?
There's also pre-meeting prep work, so. yeah,
Correct.
Tack that on.
Okay, board members, Mr. Sullivan?
So just a couple questions. I had a couple residents reach out to me, and one of the questions people I think have is, well, I think it was answered before I told them it was answered, that the hours would not be lost, it'd be made up on Friday, for example, right?
If applicable, if you look at the hours that, for example, Michelle, if she leaves at 2:30 or 2 on a Friday, she's making up that time right now.
Right, no, I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm talking about the people that work Thursday, leave early Friday, that may not have a meeting, that may.
If they work Thursday, it should work out pretty close to them having a full week.
All right, and then it was kind of a two-part question. I think the treasurer collector hit on one of them. There's other work that can be done, despite the fact that the public's not present. So I guess what people worried, like wondering about the workload, everything's still gonna get done. It just they won't be here Thursday night. I mean, there's stuff that could be done Thursday.
They could do
besides-
you're right, they could do meeting minute nights, or they could cover a meeting.
And then the big question somebody wanted to know is why do offices that have 2 employees, they can't stagger it, so one would be here on a Thursday, not the other one?
That's why my recommendation would be to let the department heads make up those individual schedules, particularly where it's a position that doesn't necessarily answer directly to me, this board.
Correct. That's what I emphasize to people. You have oversight of town hall and its functions. You don't have oversight of the individual departments, all departments and all functions. So my answer basically was, if you had a pick on a board, the assessors have 2 people in their office. You should go to them and ask them why they're not staggering their employees, because we can't mandate that. Those are the concerns people had, Mr. Chairman, kind of some of the ones I had too, so.
Jerry?
Well, I know when I was here, when I volunteered to man the selectman's office for a couple of months, I know no one came in, and I but I can just speak for that office. I can't speak for the other offices. Some offices might have a need to be open Thursday, some might not. As Mr. Sullivan said, that's been a concern to make sure that we're still, if someone's scheduled and paid for 40 hours, they work 40 hours, whether it's Thursday night or not. I honestly really don't have an opinion if an office is open Thursday or not. As Mr. Ruda said and as you've said, we can't micromanage each individual department. We kind of trust the leaders to lead. And like I said, I really don't have an opinion as long as the public's served. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Joseph?
does the board have the option of either compensatory time or additional payments on an hourly basis?
I think we take advantage, Mr. Joseph, of compensatory time now if we run over. I would have to budget for additional hours if that were the direction that the boards wanted to go.
So would it be, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Paul.
would it be the town administrator's decision or the Board of Selectmen's decision or the appropriate town to determine whether or not there would be compensatory time versus additional payment according to the employee's current hourly rate?
Mr. Chairman, I can, Mr. Joseph, I think to the degree that a department head could pay those additional hours, I could probably say if there's no budget for it, meaning they don't have a line item to support it, then I would probably step in and just advise them that they don't have a means to pay for it. Other than that, if it were an independent department that doesn't necessarily answer to me, I would probably go with, if it was the board's pleasure to let them do one or the other, I certainly wouldn't interfere with that. The only time I would interfere is if there's no money to pay the person with.
Could I ask if, Mr. Chairman, if any other members of the board have an opinion on the issue?
Jay?
So I look at this as you schedule the hours to meet the customer's needs, and you schedule it without overtime. If you need to apply some, runs way over, something special, then you should have just a tiny bit of wiggle room in those budgets.
Reed? Anybody else have anything, commentary for Paul?
Okay, I was just curious
Yep.
what individual board members had for thoughts on the issue.
I mean, so I'll go to Mr. Johnson's point, like if we're scheduling, based on current demand and we suddenly get, overwhelmed by, people coming in or we need more help, then you throw bodies at the problem, right? So you might need to hire somebody else. You don't, if there's some extraordinary circumstance, then maybe there's something put aside for that, but I think that should be the exception, not the rule.
Okay,
Yeah. But like I said, if it were to happen, yeah. Anybody else? Jay, you had something else? No, good. All right, so what do we need to do with this tonight? We've kicked this around for several weeks.
You're acting, Mr. Chairman, on waivers that have been requested from several departments, and then that evolved or devolved, depending on your viewpoint, into wanting to implement a policy to allow it, to delegate it to department heads or something else. So we started with acting on waivers. The the board requested information from all departments, and now we'd like to see some action taken by the board in terms of what you want the policy to be.
Jay?
What I'm thinking is, possibly approve the waivers for a 3-month trial period and then review them after 3 months. Find there's a lot of problems with it, we'd probably be asking, those department heads to, reconsider. What I don't wanna do is, carte blanche for, forever, if it doesn't work.
So until May 30th? 30 days after,
Yeah.
Is that a motion? Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Rich wanted to say something.
Mr. Chair, while Rich is coming up, I just have a question to the administrator. Was everybody afforded that form? Looks like some have a template, said amount of personnel hours. Because, again, they don't all report to us, but it's a small frustration, Mr. Chair. We got letters on department letterhead, we got a paragraph from somebody. People couldn't even follow the form you asked them to fill out, or they all fill it out and give additional documentation. 'Cause that's
Some of it
frustrating.
Mr. Chairman, some of it preceded, some of it proceeded. Some of it came in as, in the form of a request for a waiver without the memo that I sent out to all department heads. Some of it came back with that memo filled in that I sent out to all department heads.
So, just, do you sense a small amount of frustration? They couldn't even follow the template that was asked, and now they want waivers, this and that.
I understand.
And somebody said something about the compensation study that just went through also. But, just me, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, board members, one thing, I don't think I've hidden the fact that I think Thursday night is important. It's important in my office. For the rest of the town hall, I would ask maybe we delay a policy until end of the fiscal year, maybe middle of June, somewhere in there. Middle of summer is going to be a slower time, at least as far as foot traffic goes. People go on vacation. You've got the best information, and my thought is that we'd have some uniform hours. If Thursday night is not the night we need to be here, we should have a pretty formal framework for the 40 hours worked. It's always a concern if I'm processing payroll, oh, wait a second, did somebody have a meeting? How are we tracking the 40 hours worked, 35 hours worked, when there is a meeting one night? Or it takes dedication to come here on a cold Thursday night. Also takes dedication to come here on a Monday night or whenever your board is having a meeting and to go through, do the right prep work. There's always follow-up to it. No meeting just ends. If you're there at 10 or 11 at night, a lot has transpired. You want to go through, get the minutes, things like that. And I fully appreciate that. But at the end of the day, let's build that into a good framework so that John Q. Public walks in, you guys still open on Wednesday afternoons? I still get that question. So the idea is that we hang the sign outside that says these are the 40 hours that best serve the customer. I think Selectman Johnson made that comment. I appreciate the needs of the water and sewer are going to be a little different from my office, from the town clerk, and from the Board of Selectmen. But stand at the front door and look in. What do you expect as a citizen, a taxpayer, a voter, a new resident? And I'd ask that we get a consensus and sort of build a plan to cover as much as you can. I think compensatory time is being used right now. Anytime there's paid time off, it's always a concern to track it for verity. So appreciate the time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well,
Okay, see,
if we were to take the treasurer's suggestion. I mean, we're looking at May 30th anyway. If we take Mr. Johnson's suggestion, would it be harmful to go another month, just finish out the fiscal year? Is that,
What, under his,
yeah, well, his suggestion was May 30th, which sounded like a pretty good one, but if we take the treasurers and go another month, it's fiscal year, right?
Why not July? Why not August? Fiscal year is just, that's a, you know, it's important, but to run an experiment, I'm not sure it matters, you know, is 2 months too little, 3 months too much? Is 4 months, you know, just right? It's kind of arbitrary. I usually take quarters, not.
quarters? That's how I think,
It would be important if this was a budgetary thing, but sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right.
But
Okay, let's,
Mr. Chairman, the only thing
Mr.
I'll
Ruda.
remind the board is that we put these, acting on these waiver requests, which is permitted under bylaw, on hold for several months now.
yeah, no, I would like to dispose of this tonight, guys, please. Mr. Johnson.
So just one last statement before I make my motion. The point of running this as an experiment is not only to find out if this is the right thing or the wrong thing, but also, you know, the proposals for these waivers, people making those proposals are responsible for the quality of service in those areas.
That's right.
And therefore should be responsible for handling the pros and cons of this recommendation. So, you know, just be ready. If it's quiet, then you know you didn't make a mistake. But be prepared for the opposite. With that, I make a motion to accept the waivers for a period ending at the end of May 2022.
Motion by Mr. Johnson, a second.
second,
Second by Mr. Sigenovich. Discussion?
may I?
Yes?
I agree with Mr. Sullivan that in the future, whenever we do anything like this, we need a template and everything needs to be the same so that we can compare things apples to apples. As he said, we've got an Excel spreadsheet, we've got a paragraph, we've got a form, we've got something else. They're all different, and I'm not saying I don't appreciate the effort to put it through, it's just going forward, it would be nice to have the same exact thing, to compare everything apples to apples, easier.
Okay.
To use one of my favorite words, standardization.
Unfortunately, and I agree, that's why I created the spreadsheet, Mr. Chairman, but you always, you don't always get what you ask for, when you ask for it.
I'm sitting here trying to explain things so that everyone can understand, and you just take what I unraveled and just put it all right back together. Thank you.
Right. Paul, anything else to add?
No, I just want to be sure that, if there is a motion on the floor, if I could have the motion restated for the record.
Good, Jay.
Jason Johnson motioned to accept the waivers that were provided to us tonight and extend them to the end of May 2022.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Cheers.
Oh, Carrie.
I'm sorry, I just wanna make this crystal clear. Now, what happens on May 30th? Do we forget about this? Does it go back on the agenda for us to discuss? That part we didn't
Oh,
talk
yeah,
about.
maybe.
Is there when's the next meeting?
The closest meeting
Around
to
May
the 30th.
30th. Good
Just
point.
had it
That
here.
is a good point.
Well, it must be,
Close,
23rd town meeting, June 7th or something.
June 7th. June 6th.
Let's pull it in then.
June 6th.
Cause I don't match what Rich asked for, so I want to just pull it back. All right, June 6th. Change my motion.
Okay, is that okay with the seconder? Carrie?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Sullivan?
Mr. Chair, just for informational purposes, and I'll back up what Kerry just said, I'm gonna vote for this temporary But in my opinion, I only speak for myself, Mr. Ruda comes up with a follow-up spreadsheet. It would behoove these departments to please attempt to follow what's asked, because it may influence a decision further down the road. If they can't take the time to, Mr. Ruda said, you don't always get what you ask for,
Right.
that should be unsatisfactory to all of us.
Properly organized data to make decisions.
Fair enough. Okay, roll call vote.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Terry Sigenovich, aye.
Paul Joseph, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
John Marcy, aye, unanimous. Thank you. All right, 6B, Town Administrator, is a grant spreadsheet for us to submit and review. Jonathan?
Mr. Chairman, the board asked me, when we did my planning stage for my performance review, to provide them with a spreadsheet of the grants that I had some impact or something to do with, either directly or by leading the team to get them. I removed any of the CARE Act, ARPA, any of that kind of funding, because that required basically during the pandemic a heartbeat in order to get that money, so. So if you look in your folders, you'll see grant spreadsheet.
Yep, a minute.
Olivia was good enough to put this together based on the information that we actually have in terms of what grants were awarded since 2019, when I was appointed. So we have a tab with awarded, in progress, not awarded, and a nice chart at the back.
That's great. Anybody have any questions for Jonathan? The tabs. Jay?
Mr. Town Administrator, through the chair. The pie chart is total for all years. Grants by category, is it all years?
Grants by category for all years.
So, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sullivan?
if the administrator would so indulge, I would like him just to announce what's been requested, what's been received, so people know.
Yeah, people know. I was just thinking the same thing. Jonathan?
Okay, so from the top, those grants that were awarded, Municipal Vulnerability, that's the MVP grant. We applied for it on May 1st. Requested $15,000, and it was awarded $15,000. The EVIP charging station, we applied for it in March of 21. Amount requested was 97. We were notified in December that we got that. Mattress Recycling Grant Program Initiative was for $9,000 in April. We were notified in May that we got it in 21. Green Communities applied in January of 21 for $200,000. That was awarded in January of 22. Capital Improvement Grant was $22,000. We were notified in 2019 that we received that. If you recall, that grant was stalled and they were asking for their money back when they took office, and we revitalized it, so I credited myself for getting that one. We got a call from DOR requesting the money back because it had been awarded for 2 years and no action was taken on it. Classification compensation study was $25,000. That was awarded in 2019. We have a human resources grant that we applied for in December of 21 for $6,000. We actually have two of those, $6,000 apiece for $12,000. And we were notified that we got those in November. Mass Cultural Council, Michelle's gotten pretty good at getting those, $1,500, $1,000 we were awarded for the last several years. We did the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan that will help us bring the town up to date with ADA compliant sidewalks, public buildings, that sort of thing. We were notified that we got that grant in 2019. That was for $274,000. We got a series of grants on the complete streets. One was for $20,000, which was awarded in December of '20. And another one was for $400,000 that was awarded in '21, and you're gonna see the fruits of that pretty soon. What else? Let's see. Dam levy and coastal infrastructure repair and removal grant. We were awarded $71,000 for that in August of '21. And that's for the engineering, design, and development, start to remove some of these dams that we've been out of compliance with, and we're required to do that. As the board is aware, we got a small grant. I included this one because I actually had to apply for this for COVID for $14,000 in 2020. Our cybersecurity assessment was a $35,000 grant. That was in 2019. We got a community compact IT grant for $150,000 in 2020. That was a competitive grant. Michelle got a mapping of veterans section of Corbin through Janet Malzer, and that was for $1,506. And that was awarded in June. Did I miss any?
No. We have a total.
Yep, so. Let's see, is it total here? Total request is 1.7 million, roughly. Total awarded was 1.6 million.
Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Chair, that was the two big numbers I was looking for. I want people, many times we have department heads that do a great job, get grants. We get updates from public safety all the time, and invariably people say, oh, everybody gets those. Well, you know what? Everybody doesn't get them. Our department heads and the administrator, Michelle, they're all very proactive getting grants. If you read the local newspaper, the one that sticks out to me is the complete streets. Mr. Root has been leading the charge with Mr. Scanlon and Jeff and other people. I don't want to leave anybody out, but other towns are just trying to get their ball rolling. And we are so far ahead. You know, water sewer is not listed here, but the PFAS stuff, you know, it just infuriates me when people say everybody gets that grant, you're not doing anything special. Well, these department heads and others that work on them, they need to be recognized and appreciated, because we are way ahead of the curve on a lot of towns. No doubt about it.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, as it's been explained several times in several meetings, it's not just apply for the grant and get it. Sometimes there's multiple steps and hoops and
Yep.
you know, backflips through state and federal agencies you have to handle before you eligible for the next one. So all those steps are being done, obviously, to get this.
Right. I love what Mr. Sullivan said, because you read the Webster Times and you notice that, like, some of the towns around us are just thinking about this, and we've already done it. Good call on that.
Yeah.
In some cases, Mr. Chairman, we're playing a lot of catch-up, too.
Yeah.
So,
But you addressed it by applying for
addressed.
new ones.
I'll reiterate what what you've all said, is that, especially Mr. Sullivan, one person can't do this. There's no way. So,
Right, I don't
as the person managing it, I'm assigning myself to it, but there's no way one person could do all this.
I don't want to miss, that's why I don't want to miss anybody, and I tried to make that
Yeah.
clear. We don't have a full-time grant writer. Some towns have a grant writer, that's all they do. Write grants, administer grants, apply for grants. I mean, how many times has public safety got up in front of us and told us?
Right. These don't include the public safety
Right,
grants.
I'm saying their stuff, they're doing it inside their 8-hour day, 40-hour week with their staff. So like I said, it's just important that we know it, but we recognize it so people know it, in my opinion.
So, Mr. Chairman, we have in progress, we applied in September of '21 for $800,000 for another CMRPC, Department of Housing and Community Development grant. We're working on a stormwater management. I talked to Jeff about that today. Actually, there might be an opportunity coming up. We've got another MassDOT shared streets and spaces for 199,200. It's gonna be closer to it's gonna be right on the line for 200. We talked about that last week. I think that's going in probably by Friday this week, right, Jeff? It went in today? So, applied and waiting, would apply there. And then we have the municipal small bridge program on Mill Street, which we were unsuccessful in getting. We're taking another shot at it for $520,000. So, in progress, we have 1.5 million. We don't know, they're in different varying stages but they're all pending. We have 1.5 million pending. And then finally, the ones that we applied for and were not awarded is another tab. Total requested was $565,000. So of what we've received so far, the 1-point-something million, only 565 was rejected, so we've been doing pretty good.
Really well.
Yeah.
Great. And do you need us to, is that just for information?
That was as you requested, and there it is.
There it is. Thank you, Jonathan and team. All right,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Joseph.
do all of these grants include funding for the cost of administering the grant?
I would have to look specifically, Mr. Joseph, but there's nothing that's popping into my mind where the cost has not been covered. In some cases, we'd have to put up some money at the front end and get reimbursed for it for grant and project design. Or like when CMRPC helps us apply for these grants, we pay them and then we in turn get reimbursed for it. But there's nothing that's jumping out where the administrative side of it hasn't generally been covered.
Okay.
And when we get to the point where we can get some money for the bridge over here, Jeff has come up with a plan to pay for the engineering and development with Chapter 90 funds, so it's still not hitting the tax base.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? All right. All right, well, moving on. Item 6C, schedule progress review for town administrator.
So this is I've done it for anybody who answers to me. I've done the check-in, the mid-year check-in for the progress review, so the board needs to do that for me at some point. It can be by committee, it could be the entire board. This is just a check-in period to identify things that need to be addressed or.
How did we do in previous years?
I think you have.
We didn't do
appointed
your
two
whole
people to-
rating thing. Wasn't the whole,
No, it's just it's a progress review that I think you appointed a few members to do it.
oh, we also have item 6D, which we're appointing 2 members to negotiate your new contract as well. So, if there's no objection, I'd like to sign up for 6D. Mr. Sullivan, would you like to join me on that one? And then we can,
Yeah, I'll do 6D,
all right,
if the board's okay.
okay.
And maybe you guys wanna do the
Then
review?
6C, you choose.
Might as well take 6C.
6C. Paul, do you have any preference? Do you participate in review or?
No?
Okay. Okay, so Kerry and Jay. We'll do 6C. How about that?
Good.
6C, and then we'll do 6D. Okay. Jay.
I'm sorry, if you do the progress report, then you have the basis for to roll right into the contract. So that's why I said, if you're gonna take the D, you should take C, because it's just continues the same conversation. No?
No,
The only way you'd want two different people is to get a different viewpoint.
Well, the progress review is one thing, and then there's the, you know, the nuts and bolts of what a contract is.
Right, that's
I
what-
did his first one, so I know it, so it makes sense for me to do that. It's, you know, for them to understand it, but I get your point. I mean, we could, it's almost like the goal setting type, it's like they're not in there.
Okay, yeah, they're
Yeah.
different enough where I'm okay with taking C. Carry on, do C.
Sure.
But Jay, Jonathan, you're gonna send out something, right? This is how you self-assess your check-in, is that how, and then,
What I'll do is I'll remind everybody by sending out the goals that you set on Part A.
yeah,
And then you'll have the opportunity to take a look at it and say, I would like more information on whatever,
progress to date.
progress to date. In some cases, you'll look at it and just by the meetings, you'll know what the progress is, such as the grants. In other cases, you may want a more in-depth view.
Okay. Okay,
I'm good with that, Mr. Chair.
all right, guys, good. All right,
Makes sense.
thank you, guys. All right, 6E, open town meeting warrant, Monday, February 28th, 2022. Close the Monday, March 21st, 2022, 4:30 PM. And the warrant will be posted prior to Thursday, May 12th, 2022. Board members, what's your pleasure there?
So move.
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Johnson,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Sullivan. Roll call vote.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Paul Joseph, aye.
Gary Siganovich,
John Marcy, aye, unanimous. Thanks, guys. All right. Item 7, departments. Jeff? No?
So, just touching on what the town administrator had mentioned before, there was a shared streets and spaces grant application that went in today for reconfiguration and possibly sidewalks for Airport Drive, Tanyard, and Dudley Hill. And as well as that, the governor released about $100 million for Chapter 90, a supplemental budget that was announced, I believe it was last weekend or the weekend before. So we haven't gotten an amount yet, what the apportionment would be for Dudley, but that's good news that, you know, there'll be some amount of funds added to the Chapter 90 apportionment for this year. And then also next week, there's a joint meeting on the 7th with the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board to discuss the project that will take place over on Mason Road for the sidewalk project. So any of the residents that are affected over there on Mason Road have been notified, and they're welcome to the meeting to discuss the particulars of the project, and the engineer will be here to address any of the questions or issues with the residents. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. Anybody have anything for Jeff? Awesome, thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Dean?
I don't really have anything this week unless you have any questions for me, other than the ambulance continues to be busy, and we've just been covering up the calls, being shorthanded. Obviously, we've been down a couple full-timers. So everything's going along well, I mean, as well as can be expected, so.
Mr. Chairman, the fire department has a big, red, juicy something for sale that I'm sure that we'd love to
Yeah,
advertise at this.
and there was a nice article in the paper, too.
Yes,
That was a nice find, Dean.
Nice find.
well, I guess I wish everybody felt that way.
Oh, wasn't aware, but I think saved the town a lot of money and get us a newer truck with better features, so. So if anybody wants to buy engine 1.
Well, it's engine two.
Engine 2, sorry.
It's
excuse
engine
me.
one.
It's on municipal
Sorry.
bid.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The intern did a great job with pictures and getting it posted on Municipal.
Yes, Pedro.
So thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm just gonna make a comment at what the chief just said. If anybody doesn't look at that and see a great bargain and a win for the town of Dudley, we're never gonna please that person.
I just wanted to say, to piggyback on that, as most of you, if not all of you, are aware, both of the Engine 2 and Engine 3 were purchased simultaneously in 96, I believe, 1996. There is no way I would ask the town to buy two new fire engines at the same time in 2022. So we couldn't pass this deal up. It was a fraction of the cost of a brand-new truck. I just went to capital improvement a week ago. Mr. Landry's in the audience, asking for $750,000 to replace engine 3, because it's probably gonna go up too, because I mean, everybody sees what's happening in the world. I mean, by the time we go through the whole process, you're looking at 1.5 to 2 years, and there'll be 2 price increases by then. So, I mean, and like I said, this will be the last major purchase of my tenure, other than ambulances and maybe a pickup truck. So we would have achieved what the department wanted to achieve during my tenure as chief anyway.
Okay. Thank you, Dean, as always. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a lot to report. I know we've been busy with domestics, a lot of sections and mental health commitments we've had over the last few weeks. But one thing is, I think I mentioned to the board last week, but it was good to get we ended up arresting a gentleman that was 38 years old who was responsible for the shooting that we had back on April 28th on Green Street. If you can remember that from last April. The individual was out of state. He was in Florida, and he came back up here and actually was able to turn himself in. And so we got a gentleman charged on that. Jim Anise, the new sergeant, did a really great job of getting all the information on that. It was not an easy case as it went forward. There was a lot of moving parts, but it was good to get that going and get some justice back in that instance for those individuals. Fortunately, the victim, who was I believe was shot twice, he actually survived and made it through everything. So. But it was a lot of good work, and so that case is moving forward, and hopefully that gets wrapped up fairly soon. But is there any other questions or anything like that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Richard? Treasure collector?
Good evening, thank you. I'll hit you between the eyes right away. March 10th, water and sewer are due, so are the excise bills. Taking everything that I've heard in the last week or two, everyone wants to go to dudleyma.gov and click through to pay all of your bills. I'll be a salesman for just a second. I paid my 3 excise and I paid my water and sewer bills. Only cost me 50 cents for the cart. Remember, that's a third-party provider. They have served us very well. I would not go through and Google how to pay a bill. I would go right to the Town of Dudley's website and click through. That's the safest way, other than coming in here with a check or cash. Remember, if you want to pay anything with a credit card, you want to go through that Unipay site. The fee to use the credit card is about 3%. It's not negotiable. Again, we don't have the luxury of Walmart, where if you're pushing that carriage through and you're running the card, you're probably buying more. There's a couple of statutes in place that don't allow one person to be charged more because of their payment. It's for convenience only. So again, March 10th, it's a Thursday, ironically. So go through and get those payments made. Interesting little side note, when I went through and I ran these payments, I had payments made before the bills hit the mail. When you upload the file to Unipay, those who have signed up get a notification. So you probably had 12 people who paid before the postmark ever went on. I, of course, paid early because, you know, I live for these things. Mr. Johnson, did you have a?
We got paid before the mailings went out. Could we have saved on the mailings?
Yeah, well, if that was, you.
Right, and I'll go to the flip side of it. Previously, and I'll leave it at that, people have gone through and spent hours hand delivering things. Organizationally, if I grab my own bill, For completeness, it needs to be billed, it needs to be generated and printed, and I keep it for my records, but we don't want to start going through and emphasizing some hand pulls on those bills. So the system works, albeit it is a third party. Health insurance, the Hampshire Council of Governments Insurance Trust for this upcoming year has a 0 increase. It's the only time we want to see 0% on anything. So that is a good thing. I don't believe we had an increase last year either. It's also not a hat trick that we've gone through and changed any of the benefits. Everything remains the same. There's still the 100, 200 annual deductible on the pharmacy, but the rest is just the basic co-pays. Of course, durable medical equipment has a percentage as opposed to an annual limit. Those go into effect for July 1st, but the first deductions would of course be June 1st. End of April, beginning of May is going to be the open enrollment. Everybody realizes that today is the last day to count hours for the Affordable Care Act, because the Town of Dudley Board of Selectmen voted from March 1st till the end of February to count hours to see who qualifies for health insurance. It's 20 hours per week on average for that specific period of time to go through and offer benefits during the open enrollment period. The Affordable Care Act is 30 hours. So you have those two. And again, that all dovetails into the 1095 that you received from Blue Cross. Were you eligible? Did you take it? Does it meet the minimum criteria? Sorry to lull everybody to sleep, but the end of the month of February had something, and reporting a 0 increase off of health insurance, it is a good thing. Dental rates are on their way. Life insurance, I don't expect to change, but then again, you don't know. Appreciate everybody's time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks. Chairman of the CIP's here. You have anything for us, Mr. Landry?
No, sir.
All right. Okay, up next, we have the student representative. Abby.
Alright. Shepherd Hill boys basketball team won this year's version of the Clark basketball tournaments, and they're on their way to states this Friday against East Long Meadow as 15th seed statewide in MIAA Division I. And Shepherd Hill girl basketball team has also been doing very well with their season, making it to states as well, which I believe will also be played this Friday, but I'm not 100% sure. And we had our Wordle competition the Friday before break, which went amazing, and the freshmen ended up winning the $450 prize.
The freshman?
Yeah.
Wow.
What was the, can I, Mr. Chairman, what was the competition?
Wordle. It's that app.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's cool. Thank you. Any questions for the student rep?
Mr. Chair, I just want to piggyback. Shepherd Hill boys and girls are both led by former alumni, former players. Two very successful players when they played. Nice to see them in-house doing a good job as coaching.
Yeah. Really happy to see that.
It's almost graduation time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Getting
is.
there.
Finish strong, Abby. Don't
Holy cow, it's almost great.
You have any, did we talk about where you're going to school?
I think I want to go to Suffolk University.
Suffolk? Oh, that's
Nice.
Anthony's second choice. That's great. Fantastic.
Second, right?
No. He was his first, and then, but then he went to PC. Now they won the Big East, so I'm pretty happy with that.
because they didn't play 3 games, but win on goes.
Great school. Great school. All right, next, board member comments. Carrie?
I've got nothing, thank you.
Paul, anything?
No, sir.
Steven?
Hey, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of quick ones. I want to congratulate department heads present here tonight. Didn't get a lot of publicity, but we had a resident wander off in the big snowstorm in between police, fire, and highway. Person was located. I had one of his family members reached out to me, very grateful for the effort that people put forward to help their family in an extreme time of need. This person needed help and had wandered pretty good distance considering the conditions. So I just want to publicly thank whoever department heads here can pass the word along that it was much appreciated by the family and the people in town that have heard it. Just an amazing set of circumstances which prevented a bad tragedy. My second one, Mr. Chair, last week in the Webster Times, I don't know if everybody read it or not, but Katherine Calvallo has decided not to run for Dudley Charlton School Committee after serving over 38 years. I just want to say, on a personal note, I've known Mrs. Calvallo a long time. Anybody gives 38 years to an organization, no compensation, they deserve all the credit in the world. The people in this town, the people in the district, the thousands and thousands of students that went through Shepherd Hill, everyone had benefited in one way or another with Mrs. Calvallo's efforts and all the school committee effort through the years. And I just wish her well on her next chapter in life. It's going to be strange not seeing her name on the ballot, where it's been on the ballot every time I voted since I moved to Dudley. And I wish nothing but the best for Mrs. Calvallo and her family going forward. And again, from the bottom of my heart, I really thank the effort, the perseverance, the dedication, any word you want to use. She deserves the accolades, no doubt in my mind. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Johnson?
I'm just glad.
Yeah, I'd like to ask that the board request Mrs. Calvallo's presence at the next possible meeting to make a presentation, appropriate presentation of a certificate or plaque to her for her 38 years of service.
Great idea,
It's
Paul.
appropriate that it be done publicly, and that the board, on behalf of the town, recognize that. So I'm gonna make that motion.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Joseph,
Second.
second by, I don't know if we can, it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll make sure.
We'll make sure it happens,
Direct me to
Paul.
do it, and I'll make sure.
Yeah, we're gonna direct the town administrator to do it. I think it's a fantastic idea. Yep, great. Jay?
Do you want me to withdraw my motion?
Yes, please.
Take it out.
So done.
Thank you.
Just glad to see, Little League hopefully having a full normal season. Mass went optional at Dudley Charlton Regional Schools on our way to normalcy. Nice job wrapping up the last vaccine clinic at Town Hall, and hopefully moving into a healthy summer.
Well said. And for me, I echo Mrs. Sullivan. I emailed Mrs. Calvallo and to thank her for all that she's done. It hasn't been an easy year for the people on the school committee, and it's different from what we do here on the Board of Selectmen, but I appreciate when you're standing in front of your jury of your peers, it can be difficult. So, I always think and appreciate anybody who stands up like that. So, thank you, Kathy.
Mr. Chair, we should have added, I should add it. I know we don't get involved in national stuff,
No.
but I stand with Ukraine.
I 100% stand with Ukraine. Okay, item number 10 is adjournment and executive session. Mr. Signarich, would you like to lead us there, please?
I'll call Mr. Joseph back. when we-
And Mr. Joseph, we will call you back when we're done.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we convene into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negations with non-union personnel, and Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
In this case, Mr. Chairman, it relates to the fire chief and assistant fire chief.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Sigenovich.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sullivan. Roll call vote, please.
Is the text correct, negations, or is it contract
I
negotiations?
said it right.
Scribner's error.
I said it right.
Is it Scribner's error? Because he read negations.
I did, that's what it says, negations. Would you like me to change the motion?
Go ahead, just said
Yes,
negotiations, we wouldn't have.
Well, sorry, attention to detail. Don't get that guy to read this stuff, you know? Get somebody who'll just
Okay.
go right through.
So Kerry, you're gonna.
I'd like to modify my motion, Mr. Chairman, to state contract negotiations and not contract negations as stated in the document.
Is that okay with the seconder?
That's fine, Mr. Chair.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Kerry Sigenovich, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Paul?
Paul Joseph, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
John Marcy, aye. Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Not to convene, like I said that.
Yeah, not to convene.